Hey everybody, Bill Faeth. Welcome back to STR Unfiltered. Today I want to talk about the transition of a guest checking out of our property and how do we bring more of them back. One, we got to deliver a great experience, obviously, while they're in our property. I'm going to assume all of you great hosts are doing that anyways. If you're a shitty host, then you probably need to level up your game a little bit. But most of you, if you're listening to this and you're implementing things that I'm trying to teach you, and you know what, you just have a good, decent sense of hospitality, you should be getting mostly 5-star reviews. But there's some small things that we can do. And really that transition of when a guest checks out, now it's time to start marketing to them. And this is where a lot of people miss the boat. Number one, you need to have stay-fi in each one of your properties. It's really simple. Man, I wish I was on payroll for them, to be honest with you. But you know, it's a platform that I live and breathe by, because the email list is the number, really I should say the contact list is the number one place that we can bring back our guests. And there's multiple ways that we can communicate with those guests, and that's what we're going to talk about today, to be able to entice them to come back and stay with us again. And what we're going to talk about, a few things. We're going to talk about I'm going to use the word reciprocity a few times, right? And the only way that we can really implement reciprocity is if we can create value and really separate ourselves from, other hosts or other Airbnb listings based on the relationship that we build. That's why if you didn't listen to the last podcast, it's about guest communication. And I kind of get into that whole thing and lead up to the transition that we're talking about here. So I would go back and listen to that podcast and then come through and listen to this one. And these are things that I focus on a lot in my Host Academy programs, because this is how we LTV, lifetime value. That's how much value a client possesses to us. This is how we extend the lifetime value. So there's this transition that happens when the guest checks out. And I talk a lot about in the marketing and the selling, we're selling an outcome. We're selling that feeling of that travel nurse when they leave your 2-bedroom condo in downtown Austin, Texas. We're selling the feeling of mom when she's got dad and grandma and grandpa and the kids all loaded up into the Suburban, and she's exhausted because she had to pack and clean and do all this stuff the last night before they left. And she's like, oh my God. One of the problems is that she's stressed the last night. So we start the transition, and this is really important. We start the transition the day before checkout. And if you go back through that guest communication, I talk about sending the message. I used to send it like most people at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon with, the instructions for checkout. Now I send it, it's either like 7, 8 a.m. in the morning, the day before checkout, because people started reaching out to me and like messaging and calling and texting and saying, hey, what do we need to do to prepare for checkout? It's our last day. And I'm like, well, shit, I need to send that earlier in the morning. So I moved it to the morning so that way it relieves stress. And if you know me, you know I don't require my guests to do anything at checkout. I leverage reciprocity and say my cleaners would absolutely love you if you would start the dishwasher, if you would take out the trash, if you would do a load of laundry, but it's not required. So that they've paid me, they haven't paid the cleaners. They want to make the cleaners' job easier. They don't care about me, right, as the owner. And that's where the reciprocity first kicks in. They're like, yeah, we don't want to, we don't want to be a bitch to the cleaners and be messy or not do anything. So they do a few things, right? And so that's kind of the first step with reciprocity. The next step is in that last, that's not really the last message, but second to last message, the day before checkout, is I transition from being Bill Faeth to the Faeth Family. Even in my co-hosting properties, I'm the Faeth Family. And sometimes I'll even, if I send a manual message, I'll sign it off from Bill, Bria, Oakley, and Gentry. But using Faeth Family and using my family, it makes a connection with them. And I always talk to them through the entire process from the time they book that this is our family home. This is our family, beach house, is our family lake house. It's our family cabin, whatever it is. Even for my co-hosting properties, because I want to build that relationship. I want to have that connection with them. And I don't just want to be a property management company. I don't want to just be a co-host, even with my own properties, because then they think it's just a business, and it's not. It's personal. But here's what happens. The guest checks out. Now we're in transition mode. So one of the things, the very first thing I do is, so once the guest checks out, and I send a morning of checkout message as well, just for those last things, keys, fire pit keys, all the stuff that manually has to be put back to remind them. But about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so every one of my properties is a 4 p.m. check-in and a 10 a.m. checkout. So I give them 6 hours to get home. Most of my properties are drive-in markets. So they're driving home. A lot of them come long distances. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I send a text message. And this is all done. This is all automated at this point. And it's done through, if you haven't heard of this before, it's done through MarketMySTR. That's my new all-in-one marketing platform. And I can build funnels and actually automate emails and text messages into a funnel together. And typically I couldn't do that before I started using MarketMySTR. I use simple texting for text messaging and active campaign for emails, and I couldn't, do it once and have them all go out in a funnel. I can with MarketMySTR, which is kind of cool. So I send the text message first at 4 o'clock. Just says, hey, this is Bill from ABC Property from, Elk Lodge. And I just wanted to make sure you guys made it home safely. I really appreciate you guys staying with us, and just wanted to introduce you to other properties we have around the country and provide you with a discount if you want to stay with us again. It would mean the world to us to have you back. That's simple. That's it in a text message. So then they go to a page, right? And it's a page that I have built, once again, in MarketMySTR. And it has a video of me on the top, standing in front of one of my properties, thanking them again for staying with us and letting them know, hey, if you do want to stay someplace else, if you book within 2 weeks of the time that you check out, we're going to give you a 10% discount. And once again, just how much I appreciate them being a great guest. We don't send this to everybody. We only send this to our favorite guests, blah, blah, blah. And then down below are all of my properties: Montana, North Carolina, Gulf Shores, Alabama, Nashville, lake property, all that stuff. I've got all of them down there with links to go to their individual direct booking sales pages to where they could book direct if they want. Now, I'm not actually giving them a 10% discount. I am, but that's really going to be caught back up because I'm not having to charge the fees that Airbnb and Vrbo are charging. So it really works out to be about a 7% discount. But they're also going to book so far in advance. And I tell them they can book within a year, right? But the key here is that I'm introducing them to our other properties. So remember, this is all about positioning. I'm not just selling to them. I just said, hey, if you like the beach, you might like getting out of the warm weather and cooling off in the summer in the mountains of Western North Carolina and Banner Elk or Beach Mountain. You might love going to the second clearest lake in the country at my lake house and enjoy these long range views and that type of stuff, or going to Montana to fly fish, or this incredible new house that I just opened. Those are the things that become important. The key here is I'm doing that with text messaging, and I'm putting in some emojis. So that way it's very, very personal. Open rates on text messages are over 90%. Then I'll follow up with an email 2 weeks later. And then I'll follow up with email number 2 4 weeks after that. So now I'm 6 weeks in after checkout, and I've already communicated them immediately with a text message and 2 emails within 6 weeks. And at every time that I send an email, and then I go back to text message when I send that second email and let them know, hey, I just want to make sure you're getting my emails, blah, blah, blah. There's some value in this for you. And they're not selling anything in any of those 2 emails. It's just value proposition for them with very soft, subtle opportunities for them to be able to book, right? So it's like, hey, did you know that this market added this and your kids might be interested in that? And by the way, if depending on the size of your family, we have multiple properties in this market, but I'm creating value for them first. The point here is that we need to stay consistent with our communication, and we need to have what's called a funnel ready to go. You can build this funnel in literally 2 to 3 hours, and then you can use it for every single guest that checks out of your property, and that's how you get guests to come back. So I have a funnel that goes through an entire year, integrating email and text all the way through. And literally it's about every 4 to 6 weeks after I get through that 6 week period. I think it's actually every 6 weeks. So I'm sending them like 8 or 9 communications. And those of you that say nobody wants to hear from us, the only reason that people opt out or delete is because you don't create value for them. So if you stop and you just understand that you're not trying to sell them anything, like truly intentionally, but what you're trying to do is to help them make better decisions, give them information about, like, as an example, if I put out an email a couple of weeks ago and, teaching your guests how to book direct, right? So give them the tip, even if they go look at somebody else's property, because they're going to be, man, I remember that guy that I stayed at that house in Montana or in Banner Elk and we loved it. We need to find him again, right? Because they went and booked someplace else, but now they want to come back to your place because you taught them how to go through an Airbnb listing and figure out how to direct book and save them some money. So that's where that reciprocity, ends up coming back. Even if they don't book with you immediately. Like, look, I go on like 7 or 8 vacations a year and I don't get this from anybody. Nobody follows up with me when I book Airbnbs or Verbos, or even if I book direct, nobody. This is the competitive advantage that you need. It's a year's worth of marketing to all of your past guests that you can create in 2 to 3 hours. This is the only place that you're going to be able to integrate text messaging, which is a key component to them coming back along with email marketing. But you have to do this. If you really want to get to the advanced level, then literally upload all of your guests into Facebook ads and just run 2 or 3 ads to them that are personal. You standing in a property talking to them. We're just reiterating the same content you're putting into the emails. That's how you get super advanced. But at the remedial level, it's so easy to set up an email funnel or a text funnel or a combination of emails and text inside of MarketMySTR. That's how you're going to bring your guests back to book and extend the lifetime value. Thank you for joining me on this episode of STR Unfiltered, everybody. Happy hosting.